history doesn't always repeat itself, but it rhymes. So a lot of things will come up over and over again. If we are paying attention and being vigilant of our journeys, then we can notice those things. Instead of repeating the same mistakes, we can actually repeat our successes.
Welcome to the Productivityist Podcast. It's me, Mike Vardy, your host once again, to have a productive conversation with someone who, is a former professional athlete, Dre Baldwin. He played basketball professionally for 9 years in 8 different countries, and he was a walk-on at an NCAA Division III school. He's now a full-time entrepreneur. He's authored 27 books and performed 4 TEDxTalks on discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative. And he has over 135,000 subscribers on YouTube, and his daily Work on Your Game podcast has been downloaded over 3 million times. He's built his brand on giving as much game as possible to many people as possible. And I was excited to have him on the podcast. We talked about mental toughness. We talked about my favorite basketball team and why they're my favorite basketball team. And he kind of, alluded to some of the stuff that they do that, I think definitely you could apply to your life, not just to sports and to performance in business and in life. It was a great conversation, a lot of fun to chat with Dre. So let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Dre Baldwin here on the Productivityist Podcast. I'd like to welcome Dre Baldwin to the Productivityist Podcast. Dre, thanks for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Mike. I'm excited to be here.
Now, there was a major sporting event that just happened just as we're recording this a couple of days ago, actually close to your stomping grounds, right? It's in the same state for that matter, Tampa, and that's where the Super Bowl was held. And you're based in Miami, right?
Yeah, right in Tampa, so only about 3 hours away.
Now, Dre, we booked this conversation a while ago, but I wanted to talk to you about the mindset that it takes, that athletes have. Now, frankly, I'm not an athletic person, and we talked about this before we hit the record button, but I do love following sports. I'm a big fan of watching games and the strategy behind it, and I'm a San Antonio Spurs fan. So I'll touch on that a little bit later because I'd like to get your thoughts on some of their stuff and what they've done over the years. But what is it about the athlete's mindset? Things that we can take from the professional athlete that people who are like me, not terribly athletic, can use to really push their lives in a forward direction?
That's a great question, Mike. With my philosophy and framework that I've created called Work on Your Game, there are 4 specific things. And that's exactly what I teach, which is taking the mental tools that can get you to the top 1% of the sports world, not just playing on the weekends, but the top 1%. And actually translate that into everyday life or for a business person or entrepreneur. And the 4 principles are discipline, showing up every single day, doing the work; confidence, putting yourself and your work out there boldly and authentically; mental toughness, continuing to show up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success that you have expected to achieve as a result of all your discipline and confidence has not yet occurred. And the last one is personal initiative, which puts all this stuff into action, which is going and making things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. So putting those 4 elements together, those things you need if you're going to succeed in the sports world, and you need those same elements if you're going to succeed in life, and especially if you're going to succeed in business.
One of the things I noticed as I was doing my research before our conversation was just the chronicling of your journey, talking about the different levels of pro basketball that you were known for, different countries you played in, all that. Not so much the destinations, but the journey. How important do you think the chronicle of the journey that you had has helped you as you move forward, not just as an athlete, but just in life in general? Because I think there's some value there that most people maybe don't consider, but once you put that in play, it does tell that story and helps you when you reflect in a way that allows you to really get perspective on what really matters and how you can take things to the next level. So let's talk about the journaling and the chronicling.
Well, that journaling and chronicling the story matters a lot on both ends. First of all, for the person ourselves, whether it's you, Mike, with your journaling, and me chronicling my story. First of all, we can take a look back and see where we were and where we've come. And it also give us a lot of insights into where we made mistakes, where we did things well, where we got into momentum. What are some of the things that have always seemed to work for us? And what are some things that seem to not work for us? So it helps us on the inside, or the person who's living it, to chronicle our journey and just look at where we've come from and where we're going. Because there's a lot of, as they say, history doesn't always repeat itself, but it rhymes. So a lot of things will come up over and over again. If we are paying attention and being vigilant of our journeys, then we can notice those things. Instead of repeating the same mistakes, we can actually repeat our successes. But also for the front facing stuff, for the external stuff, for the audience that comes and finds us and looks at us, and they're looking at us as someone who is presenting himself or herself as an expert or someone who really knows topic A, B, or C. One thing people want to know is, what is your credibility to even be talking about this? So if I say something like, hey, I know how to go from a person who didn't have confidence to a person who does, and then put that confidence into action and produce results with it. And people want to know, okay, if you say that, I heard what you said, but prove it. Tell me how you've done that. And that's when the story comes in. So we all know as experts, as people who do speaking from the stage, or you write books, or you're the person that people should come to and pay you their time and their money because you're going to help them with problem X, Y, Z. They want to know that you have been where they are. They want to know that you've been in the situation of needing help, of being challenged, of not knowing what to do, of feeling like you're at the end of your rope, of feeling like you walked into walls over and over again trying to get to that result, but you were able to overcome it. So it's not just a success that gives you credibility. It's the fact that you were in a position of less than success, but then you were able to overcome it. And what people want is that bridge. And the only way anybody's going to be willing to cross your bridge is if they know that you have crossed that bridge. Because if they think the bridge is going to fall apart as soon as they get some weight on it, they're not going to cross it. But if they know that you did it, then they'll be willing to listen. So that's another reason why telling your story and chronicling your journey matters so much.
Now, I mentioned earlier that I'm a fan of the San Antonio Spurs, and it's odd because I'm from Canada. So you think, hey Mike, the Raptors or maybe the ill-fated Vancouver Grizzlies are who you should be following considering where I live, but we're not going to go there. What we are going to do is go down the path of the Spurs. Now, I've been a fan of that team since David Robinson's days back in the late 80s, where he was drafted, and then the fact that they let him continue to be a performer for the Navy. They let him stay there and fulfill his obligation. So there's some integrity there. And that's one of the big reasons that I'm a fan of the Spurs is not only that, but they also have a system. They have this process, a system in place that the team has installed. Now, how important do you believe it is to have some kind of system that you can either rely on or use as a jumping off point when it comes to building a life that's successful?
Well, first of all, my father is also a San Antonio Spurs fan, diehard fan. And I'm from Philadelphia. So how he became a Spurs fan from Philadelphia is almost the equal distance. Actually, it might be a little bit further. And he's been a Spurs fan since the David Robinson days as well. So I think you and my dad will have a lot in common, Mike. And as far as answering your question about the Spurs themselves and the system, I think is a huge thing, especially in business. And actually, the funny thing is, the further you go and the better you get, the more important the system is. See, many people might think, well, the system is really important when you're first starting. It's actually a little bit less important when you're first starting because you don't even know what you're doing. And you might have to try a whole lot of different things that don't seem to connect or don't seem to have any rhyme or reason at first, so you can get your footing and kind of figure out what's going to work. But once you've gotten some things working, the more success you create, the more money you're making, the more people are coming into your ecosystem, the more important it is you have a process and a system for what you do so that everyone is getting the same experience, so that you and anyone who is working with or for you knows exactly what to do, exactly what to expect, and exactly how to respond to certain situations. So if you have one customer, you could probably just do whatever you want and just figure it out as you go along. But if you have 100 customers or 1,000 clients, you better have a system in place. Otherwise, you're going to probably burn out, or you're going to be feeling a very strong sense of overwhelm trying to deliver to everyone, but you don't even have a structured way for how you're actually doing that. And your audience, your clients are going to start to notice that. And if they're not getting a consistent experience, usually you'll go from having 1,000 clients to less than 1,000 because they're not getting a consistent experience. And when people are spending money, they expect consistency, they expect dependability, they expect to be able to predict exactly what's going to happen and how. And if you look at the businesses that make the most money, you look at a company like Apple or a company like Amazon, there's a consistency to the experience that you get with them. And that's one of the main reasons, in addition to the quality of their products, one of the main reasons why they make the money that they make, because people know exactly what they're going to get. Remembering that human beings are creatures of habit. So we like things that we can predict. We are not so keen to, at least not to pay money for things that are unpredictable.
Well, you would have to have a framework for success, not just in business, but in life too. And if you're making your way as an athlete through the different, not only the different leagues, but different cities and different cultures, I mean, having that in place has got to be helpful too. Not just, I mean, obviously it's not rare, but just in life in general, that would have had to help you navigate the journey you've taken, not just as an entrepreneur, but leading up to that as a professional athlete, right?
Absolutely. Frameworks are really important. One of the things that, to add on to this point though, Mike, that I tell people all the time when we're looking at the parallels between sports and business is that one thing that you learn very quickly when you step into the entrepreneurship side, the CEO side of things, is that in business, you are responsible for creating all of the infrastructure on your own. Whereas in the sports world, the infrastructure is already in place. It was there before you got there, and it will be there when you leave. And I tell people, you look at someone like, let's just say Tim Duncan, who played for the Spurs. For any, I don't know if you got a young audience, they might not know who Tim Duncan is, but Tim Duncan or LeBron James, let's say, all he has to do when he plays for the Lakers is show up to the gym, put on his uniform, and play basketball. He does not sell tickets. He does not book the venue. He doesn't make sure the vendors are there. He doesn't check the lighting. He doesn't make sure the floor is clean. He doesn't have to clean up after the game is over. He doesn't make sure the buses are ready and the planes are ready for the teams to go to their next destination. All he has to do is show up and play. But when you're the CEO, the owner of the LA Lakers, or the people who run those buildings, those arenas, they have to do all of that. They're responsible for that infrastructure. It doesn't mean they have to do it themselves, but they're responsible for the person who is responsible for doing it. So that's one of the big differences between being an athlete and being a CEO is that, yes, you do perform in both jobs, but in one job, the infrastructure is provided for you. And the other one, you are the one providing it if there is one at all.
You mentioned Tim Duncan, the big fundamental, which is a nice segue into talking about fundamentals, because I think when it comes to business and life, we tend to overlook those. We tend to look for the sizzle over the steak, right? That's one of the reasons I love the Spurs. I mean, they were focused on the steak more than the sizzle. There was no real, there were stars on that team, but none of them were in the same conversation, let's say, as, transcending the game, like Jordan or Kobe or LeBron. But you would want to have a Kawhi Leonard or a Tim Duncan or a David Robinson or a Tony Parker or a Manu Ginobili. The list could go on and on. You want those guys on your team. Now, how do you help people with your work nail down those fundamentals so that when it comes to the creative work outside of that, the things that are maybe the sizzle, that they can have the most impact with that sort of stuff, the steak?
That's a great question. And it's the same analogy that I use with a basketball player. So I'll start with a basketball player. So I remember when I used to put all these videos on YouTube and I'd be doing these drills. And of course I had the basic fundamental stuff, but that stuff didn't draw the most attention. What drew the most attention was when I would do all these kind of crazy moves and slam dunks and fancy movements that players hadn't seen before, or that players would take the move and they would go try it and they couldn't get it. And they tried for months and they complained in the comments like, Dre, I've been trying to do that dribble for months. I can't get it. And one of the things that I would always explain to players is that you have to get the fundamentals down first. You have to get your foundation in place first. And then that extra stuff is, like you said, the sizzle. The way I would describe it with athletes is like a cake. So you bake the cake first and then you put the icing on the cake last. And a lot of the stuff that we see in highlight reels in the sports world, the stuff that makes the 2-minute highlight reel of the game, are all the icing on the cake stuff, but they don't show you highlights of someone making a one dribble pull-up, or somebody like Tim Duncan. He would be in the highlights only because he had a great stat line, not because anything he actually did was so highlight reel worthy. And it's the same thing in the business world, because in the business world, who do we see highlights of? We see highlights of somebody jumping off of a private jet or pulling up in a fancy car or telling you how they made, 6 and 7 figures in 36 hours or whatever it is, some type of highlight. But nothing goes viral with somebody telling you, listen, these are the systems that we have in our business. These are the processes that we follow. This is what we do when we're offboarding or onboarding a new client. This is the way that we deal with any customer service issues, even though those are the things that make the business run. What makes Apple run are the systems that they have. What makes Amazon work are the systems that they have in place. It's not the fancy stuff that everybody seems to be talking about. So in the business world, to answer your question, it's having those, what are the systems? What are the systems that you're going to have in your business? What are the processes? Do you have them documented? Do you have them written down? Are they on video? Is every question answered? If a new person comes to work for your company tomorrow, 80% of what they need to do should already be documented. Not even that you can explain it, but it should be documented in such a way that if you were out sick, they could do 80% of the job because it's already laid out and they know exactly what the processes are that are duplicatable and repeatable. And if you don't have those, then anyone who's listening to this right now, you can start documenting your process right now. But the process needs to be documented and in place, because that is the foundation that you build, to give you another metaphor, that you build the skyscraper on. The high rise is built on the foundation. Now, nobody ever sees the foundation of a building unless that building gets torn down. But if something goes wrong with that foundation, the whole rest of the building comes collapsing down on top of itself.
Meal planning is important because it prevents us from being a disappointed wreck when dinner time comes around and we have no clue what to make, or even if we have the ingredients to make the meal. It's a time and a money saver, but most importantly, it frees up valuable brain space. Creating a meal plan prepares us for the week to come and gives us peace of mind that we're organized and can feed ourselves and our family. That's why I do it, and that's why Plan to Eat helps me do it. Your subscription includes access to the Plan to Eat website and fully featured mobile apps on iOS and Android. And Plan to Eat gives you the tools to clip and organize recipes from any website, the ones your family loves and that fit your dietary preferences and needs. And you can create a meal plan around your schedule. Then what happens is the Plan to Eat software automatically creates an organized shopping list based on your plan. So sign up for your free trial at plantoeat.com/timecrafting. That's plantoeat.com/timecrafting. The coupon will be automatically applied to your account and can be used when you're ready to subscribe. It's valid for new customers only. Give Plan to Eat a try today. And now let's take a break from the conversation to talk about our sponsors. How do you start up when the world is upside down? Sit Down Startup is a new weekly podcast from Zendesk. The Startups team brings together entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs to discuss the latest business challenges and how to put customer experience at the heart of success. Hear from people that understand unpredictability in a coffee shop style conversation. Catch weekly fresh new episodes on Apple, Google, and Spotify. I love my apps. I bet you do too. And if you're a Mac and iOS user, one of the best places to start to make sure you're getting things done and getting the apps you need to do the job is with SetApp. You see, getting things done is a challenge that everyone struggles with, even the productivityist. And one way to tackle it is to make sure that you have all the right tools for you and for your computer. And that means the right apps. Well, now the problem is not all apps do what they promise. It's really easy to download a lot of them, set up accounts. You can even pay a small fee to use them, but then they sit unused. They gather dust on your desktop and in your applications folder. And it's so easy to clutter your devices with apps that just didn't work out. And that's where SetApp comes in. SetApp is on a mission to help users get more done. With SetApp, there's no more worrying about having to search for apps to solve a problem, because with SetApp, you get high quality apps for every task. You can quickly find and select the most effective apps you need for tasks, both the ones that you need for everyday use, as well as the ones that you'll do only every so often, maybe once in a blue moon. And SetApp curates and recommends the right apps for you so that you can focus on your work. SetApp packs over 200 high quality apps for your Mac and iPhone into one, and there's an app for almost any task so you can stay in your flow and finish what you started. It's also a great value. Instead of paying thousands of dollars for separate licenses, there's just one flat monthly fee. Here's what you need to do. Head over to setapp.com to try SetApp free for a week. And if you like SetApp, plans start at just, get this, $9.99 per month. You can use SetApp for as long as it's useful for you, and it will be useful. I use it, and a client reached out to me the other day saying that they absolutely love SetApp. You will too. That's setapp.com, SETAPP.com. Get that free trial and put SetApp through the paces for free for a week. Do it today. The sun is shining. Summer is here in the Northern Hemisphere. And I have to say that even with the great weather, sometimes I can feel a little down. I've got lots of things that I want to accomplish. I can deal with some levels of anxiety because I don't feel like I'm getting the right things done all the time. Thank goodness I have time crafting to help aid me along the way, but I also have another fantastic service that helps me out. It's BetterHelp. BetterHelp is a fantastic service that allows you to connect in a safe and private online environment and they match you with your own licensed professional therapist. It's incredibly convenient, and you can start communicating with your own licensed professional therapist in under 48 hours. Now, let's be absolutely clear here. BetterHelp is not a crisis line, and it's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online. Some of the great features that BetterHelp offers is the ability to send a message to your counselor anytime. You can also have weekly video or phone sessions as well. You can schedule them, and you can do this all without ever having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available, and the service is available for clients worldwide. So you may not be able to find a specialty in your area. BetterHelp can help facilitate matches for you in areas like anxiety, sleeping, grief, LGBT matters, anger, and so many more. Anything you share on BetterHelp is confidential as well. BetterHelp is convenient. BetterHelp is professional. BetterHelp is affordable. And you can check out the testimonials posted daily on their site. I want you to start living a happier life today. It's summer. It's time to take in the sunshine and have the help that you need to enjoy every step of the way. I want you to start living a happier life today. As a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/timecrafting. Join over 1 million people, myself included, who've taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's betterhelp, HELP.com/timecrafting. Do it today. You may not know this. I don't really preach or talk about this all that much, but I live in Canada. And while I love living here, there are instances where I just can't get access to some of the content that I really want to get access to. And that's where NordVPN comes in for me. I mean, beyond the privacy elements that NordVPN offers, it's easy to use. I can connect with one click or even enable auto connect for 0-click protection in that instance, but I can get access to a variety of content across the globe. For example, I want to watch some Premier League games. It's not available in my country. Guess what? I just change my virtual location and I can get access to it. I can also find discounts in other regions as well. There's 59 countries that I can do this from. I can access content from everywhere. I don't miss my favorite content because even when I'm traveling abroad, when I start traveling abroad again, I can stay at home virtually. It just takes a click to make this happen too. You just open the map, click on a location, and you'll be connected in seconds. It's really that easy. There's no more bandwidth throttling either. So NordVPN, what happens is it encrypts your traffic. So your internet service provider can't slow down your streaming speed as well. So let me give you an example. I missed Saturday Night Live this past week, right? Or I haven't watched an episode of Saturday Night Live, and I heard there's this great sketch. I want to watch it. I go to YouTube, try to watch it, can't watch it. The uploader has not made this available outside its home country. Guess what? Activate NordVPN. Boom. Geo restrictions are no longer an issue because I can change my remote location with one click. Super easy, and I can watch the sketch and maybe even laugh. I am a big fan of what NordVPN is offering, and I want you to get the benefits of what NordVPN can offer you as well. So just go to nordvpn.com/timecrafting or use the code timecrafting to get a 2-year plan plus a bonus gift with a huge discount. Now there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if NordVPN isn't for you, you can just get that money-back guarantee and initiate it. No problem. No. Now there's also a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if NordVPN isn't for you, there's that guarantee there as well. But you're going to love it, and all you need to do to get that 2-year plan plus a bonus gift with a huge discount is to go to nordvpn.com/timecrafting or use the code timecrafting upon checkout. Thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring this episode of the Productivityist podcast. And now I'm going to get back to watching more SNL clips that I couldn't watch otherwise if it wasn't for NordVPN. And now, let's get back to the show. There's lots of other stuff in the book, Work on Your Game, that I've had the chance to look at. The idea of cardio for the mind. Eliminate self-consciousness and performance anxiety, but there's one thing that I think is apt considering our conversation right now, and that's the idea of mental toughness. Now, you didn't know going into this conversation that I would be right up against another appointment. In fact, my previous appointment ran long. And, I'm sitting here and I'm feeling that rushed, and I almost did the interview with, a subpar microphone, and here I am with my high-end Rodecaster Pro, and I was thinking I'd have to use my AirPods, and I'd have to, have this conversation while I was walking and talking. And I was thinking, I'm not going to get home in time. And, the appointment ran long. I've got to figure out what to do. I've got the tools, but I'm going to see if I can make it work. And I'm going to see if Dre's on board. And luckily, I made it home. And I mean, despite me having to throw this at you, I was able to get home in time. But I think that coming into this conversation and being able to make it home and knowing that I had some kind of backup plan in place, whether it was recording it, and then having to re-record or whatever, I think this is an example of resilience or mental toughness to a degree. So how do you deal with things that are thrown your way? And then how do you help people who have odd situations that were completely unexpected, thrown their way at literally the last minute, so that they can not only survive them, but thrive within them?
Well, one thing that we know is constant in life is change. And another thing that we also know, Mike, is that the only thing we can actually control is ourselves. And more specifically, the only thing we actually control is our mental response / approach to the things that are ever changing in life. So knowing that there's going to be something thrown at us in life that we probably didn't see coming, something that maybe we wanted, maybe something that we didn't, maybe something that we weren't thinking about at all. We don't even know how we feel about it yet. And we may not be able to process that till 10 days after it already occurred. You just had to be on your toes and be willing to deal with things as they come. Now, it helps that I'm an entrepreneur. It helps that I played professional basketball overseas, and there's a lot of unpredictability that comes with that life. And there's a ton of unpredictability that comes with being any type of freelancer or entrepreneur. You never know what's going to pop into your inbox from day to day. I'm sure you understand that, Mike. So in this line of work, I know that sometimes things happen, and I just got to be able to deal with those and work with the situation as it is, and still remembering that as a professional, the end consumer, the person who is listening to this episode right now, if you hadn't even said that part, Mike, they wouldn't even know. They would
exactly
just be listening to this, and they would say, okay, they're making their judgment. All right, is Dre Baldwin any good or is he not? Because most of the people who are listening to this episode never heard of me before, and they're judging me off what they're hearing me say, regardless of whether you were walking and talking, whether you were home and had everything set up perfectly, regardless of whether I was sick, whether we started late, started early, doesn't matter. They're judging me off the performance, and that's the only thing that they really care about, and it's the only thing that's going to determine whether or not they keep following me or go look me up after this episode, or this episode goes in one ear and out the other. So I have to remember that as a performer. And it's the same thing in the sports world. When you're watching an NBA game with the Spurs, I'm sure there were many nights where Tim Duncan had some issue with his kids at home, or maybe he was arguing with his wife and he didn't get enough sleep, or something was wrong with his knee, or he didn't get to eat the meal that he wanted to eat before the game. But none of the 20,000 fans in the arena, back in the days when we had 20,000 fans in the arena, none of them knew about that. None of them knew about any of the problems he was having. All they knew was that I paid $80 for this ticket to see this guy who's supposed to be one of the best players in the world. All right, let me see if he's actually as good as they say he is. And it was his job to show up and perform regardless of how he was feeling on the inside. And that's one of the main principal tenets of what we talk about in the work on your game philosophy, is showing up and delivering every time, because that's what a professional gets paid to do.
Dre, this has been a fantastic conversation. Before I let you go, I want to ask you, what's one action someone can take to work on their game and take things to the next level? What's one simple action that someone, when they're done listening to this, they go, you know what, I'm ready. I need to take action. What's the one thing that you recommend they do?
Create a foundational documentation process, a process / documentation of what you're doing in your business. Anything that you're doing in a repeatable, duplicatable way, or there's a certain way that you respond to certain stimuli in your business, it should be documented. So when this happens, you do this. If a customer emails saying this, and this is their issue, this is the way that we respond to it. Even if it's just you, even if you're a solopreneur doing your business by yourself, document your process, because eventually you're going to have somebody working for you. And instead of you having to explain to them every time something comes up, you already have it laid out. And understand, this is what an athlete does. As an athlete, I can't tell you how many times, Mike, I had players reach out to me and say, Dre, I want to work on my game. I want to make the high school team. I want to play in college. I want to play pro. But, I go to the gym and I'm practicing for 4 or 5 hours a day, but I feel like I'm not getting better. I would hear that all the time. Now, can anybody practice for that much time every day? Seriously, no. But this is what they would say. And I would say to them, well, if you're practicing for 4 hours a day and not getting any better, it's probably because you don't know what you're doing. You don't have a system. You don't have a process. You don't know what you're doing when you get to the gym. So you're just in there doing random stuff. No wonder you're getting random results. If you want consistent results, you have to have a consistency of your effort, a consistency of discipline, a consistency in your process. So come up with a process, know what you're doing so that the time and energy that you invest is actually producing a result and you know where it's supposed to take you. This is why people write books. This is why you have courses. This is why you have people who are coaches. This is their very job, is to provide the structure for you that otherwise you would not have. So that's the number one thing that I would suggest anyone listening to this do. If you haven't done it already, and if you have done it, then make sure your processes are up to date and sharpened.
Again, Dre, thanks so much for taking the time. Where can people keep up with you and your work, learn more about what you do, and how you can help others?
Sure. Well, I have a book that people can get for free if they just cover the shipping. Can I tell them about that, Mike?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Sure. So that book is called The Mirror of Motivation. The subtitle is The Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. Discipline being the first principle of the 4-part work on your game framework. Now, let me tell you why you want this book, because everyone who is listening to this, you probably have goals. I'm going to assume you listen to this whole conversation, you have goals and things you wish to achieve in life. And you're no dummy. You understand that you can't get something for nothing. You're going to have to put some effort in to get it. Most people understand these parts. What do I want? And I understand I have to work hard in order to get it. The problem is a whole lot of people spend their whole lives working really hard, yet they never get to their goals. They never achieve their outcomes. And they start wondering if something may be wrong with them, or something's wrong with their strategy, or something's wrong with their process, or they had the wrong goal, when none of those is actually the issue. The reason why some people work so hard yet don't reach their goals, but other people don't seem to work that hard, but they seem to reach goals quite easily, is because of the question that the first group never asks, but the second group has asked. And the question is this: who do I need to be? What type of person do I need to be in life? How do I need to approach life? What kind of posture do I need to have? And I don't mean just your physical posture. I mean your emotional posture, your spiritual posture, how you feel about yourself when you look in the mirror. This book, The Mirror of Motivation, will provide you the frameworks for you to ask yourself that question and for you to answer that question, because it wouldn't make sense for me or Mike to tell you who you need to be as a person. That wouldn't even make sense. That's why the book is called The Mirror of Motivation. So this is not a hype up book. This is not anyone telling you who you're supposed to be as a person. This is you asking yourself who you need to be. And when you answer the question who you need to be, then the actions will automatically come with it. You'll do what you need to do. And then you'll have what you need to have in life. And you can get the book for free by going to mirrorofmotivation.com, mirrorofmotivation.com. I've already paid for the book. All you're going to do is cover a small shipping charge, and we will ship that to you worldwide, anywhere you live.
Dre, thanks again so much for taking the time to join me today. And before I let you go, don't forget to tell your dad that it's gratifying to know that there's another fan of the Admiral out there. I'm really happy to hear that, especially since I think that David Robinson is one of the most underrated basketball players ever to play the game.
All right, I'll definitely let him know.
Big thanks to Dre for joining me on the program. You can, of course, find everything that we talked about in the show notes, all the links, everything related to what we discussed. And, of course, you can now do more research on David Robinson and find out why he is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best basketball players of all time. I'm not the only one that thinks that either, by the way. But, I mean, if I was to pick a Mount Rushmore of basketball, David Robinson would be on it because I'm kind of biased. But anyway, if you don't want to miss a single episode of what's to come, then please subscribe to the podcast in your podcast app of choice. When you do that, you also get the benefit of being able to easily access the archives, and there are a lot of episodes in this archive. So hit that subscribe button. Make sure you don't miss a single episode, because we've got lots of great things coming down the pipeline, including something amazing happening next week on the show. You do not want to miss it. It's a complete game changer, and I am really excited as to what I'm going to bring you next week on the program. So hit that subscribe button. Don't miss it. It's going to be a fantastic new element to the podcast that continues the journey that I'm on as the productivityist. So again, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to the episode today. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And until next time, I'm Mike Vardy, the host of the Productivityist podcast, reminding you to stop guessing and start going. See you later.